how exciting is to make a podcast about labels. We have been wondering about that for some time. Yes, should we do it? No. Is that attractive to our audience? And we have realized that one of the newest trends in the market is to work as green as possible. And yes, there is where the labels on smart printing are playing a significant role. So I'm here today with Alex Holdsworth, Regional Product Manager at EMEA Zebra, and my dear colleague Filipe Neves, EMEA Brand Manager at Blue Star. So Alex, you wanted to name this podcast Making Printer Greener and More Efficient, So by default, you're assuming there is a big challenge there, right? So what is the challenge?
Oh, absolutely. I think when anyone thinks of printing, you don't think of it being the greenest thing in the world. And obviously, there's always going to be different ways of getting information onto boxes. That's always going to be greener. Yeah. So Zebra have been thinking about this a lot lately. We've had a lot of customers, partners come to us, and it seems like green is a really big topic at the moment. So it just seems so appropriate to talk about how we can make printing greener, as there may be some kind of trends in the market that people might not be aware of, and I thought it'd be a good time to talk about it with you guys.
Okay, because when you speak about being greener, you are mainly meaning about being able to recycle in a more efficient way, right?
Absolutely, all things environmental focus. Organizations are introducing environmental officers. You're going to see it in media, on the news, in newspapers. Everything needs to be greener. Obviously, climate change, global warming is a very real thing. So what can your organization do to help be part of the solution in making themselves greener?
Yeah, I think we are all very sensitive nowadays, right? Especially, you and me, Felipe, you've been in the business for many years. Of course, someone as young as Alex, has stepped into the business much recently, and of course they have a different sensitivity. But I think we are experiencing today, a big movement, especially in the area of being very sensitive to the excess production of waste. Correct?
Absolutely. So your traditional roll of media, so this is here, you've got your label and you've got something underneath. So that yellow kind of material you see is called liner. And that liner is very difficult to recycle, and it's going to create a lot of landfill. And even this frustrates me in the Zebra office when I'm kind of testing around with my printers, just kind of printing test labels, for example. I kind of almost want to go and put the supplies that I've just tested on in a recycling bin. Yeah. And then I have to stop myself because no, you can't recycle the liner. I have to go and put this into the landfill, and obviously that's just not an ideal solution. And just organizations in general, they're going to be having to have more bins for all this liner material that have been created. You're going to have people basically dedicated to taking this rubbish out. And if you're printing tens of thousands of labels a day, that is going to really build up. So even a small thing like just the back of labels, it can make a huge change in being able to kind of, if you can remove it from your kind of organization's kind of workflow.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you said that you've been doing some tests, etc. I've been also doing some tests myself with some printing labels, etc. And one of the things that was quite annoying is that every time that I need to change a roll or to put another roll, and the printer always need to be calibrated. That's time consuming. It's a little bit annoying. It's not an easy task. So is this something that this kind of technology is solving?
Absolutely. So I guess I'll answer your question by talking about a traditional label first. You've obviously got your roll of labels, and labels come in all different shapes and sizes. You've got your 4x6 shipping label that maybe you see on an Amazon package, for example, or you might have some much smaller labels that you have just tiny bits of information on. And every single print roll that goes through a printer needs to be calibrated. You need to tell your printer how big that label is. How does it know when one label ends and when one next one starts? On this roll that I've got in front of me here, the printer would have to know that it starts there and finishes there. And that obviously takes time, and some printers can automatically calibrate, but lots of printers in the market can't. If you've got someone in your workforce who's maybe new to working with thermal printers, they might not know how to do a calibration at all, so you've got to bring someone in to train them. Right. And this all takes time and money. So it's just a challenge that people maybe don't even think about. You just assume, everyone knows how to calibrate a printer, when actually, no, that new person, maybe my age at the organization, doesn't have a clue how to calibrate a printer, and it's just
I should not say that, but I don't know how to calibrate a printer. It was not in the manual when I reached the company.
It's
right?
never too late. It's never too late.
Thank
you, Alex.
I need to know it by myself, but yeah, still a little bit annoying.
Okay, but I think at the end is really talking about the space. It's about how much space you're using in a complete row of labels. And very often we find that there are a lot of space which is absolutely unused, and this is waste, and this needs to go somewhere, right? So this unused space is a key element in this technology.
Oh, completely. So if you think about your standard label on a thing, you want to obviously have as minimal white space around the edge of the label as possible. Every single bit of unused space is just going to be extra waste. And even if you're thinking about the role of media as it is, there's obviously going to be a gap between the media. So when one label ends and the next one starts, that's just space on the roll as a whole. That is wasted space. Obviously, if you're shipping tens of thousands of these, that's just going to keep snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. So traditional label, it's just a big challenge. And you've also got the fixed nature. That role of supply is there. You've only got one very specific length of media.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other solutions out there in the market where it doesn't have to be fixed, continuous media. So that's one of the things that we're very curious to talk about today. That is one way you can be greener and more productive.
Okay.
So that will lead me also to one of the things, which is excess volume, especially when we are talking about standard labels. And one thing that I've been also checking, and also some customer asking, is the need of replacing a lot of times the rolls, because the printer doesn't have the such a big capability to have these big rolls, etc. So I was wondering also if this new way of printing will also have an impact in terms of excess volume.
Oh, a very good point you made there. So your traditional roll, it's going to be made up of the label itself, and then you've got the kind of silicon liner material underneath. So almost think of it as a kind of 50-50 of what the kind of roll is made up of. If you take away all that liner, you're saving yourself 50% space. So on a roll of a fixed size, you're just going to be getting far more labels. You're going to be able to 50% more to be specific. It's going to be, obviously, if you've got more labels on a roll, you have to buy less rolls, and therefore you're saving space, you're saving weight, and you're just going to be a lot more productive. And yeah, less rolls, less pallets. It all just really builds up into kind of making workflows just more kind of productive.
I like the way he speaks, right?
Nice.
Honestly, when we wonder, hey, how exciting is to talk about labels. If you listen to Alex,
Exactly.
I'm really becoming excited, So it's like, hey, there is so many things. There are so many things behind a role that we are not even realizing in the day-to-day printing, that is really,
we just assume that it's what it is, and that's it, and keep going. So
Exactly.
there is so many stuff that we can think about to improve everything in terms of labeling.
But look at the production. Talking about making the production more efficient, recycling more, etc. That probably means a lot of CO2, which is saved every year, or can be saved every year when we are producing these labels, right?
Oh, completely. So if we go back to the example there where we talked about shipping these rolls, obviously if they've got more labels on, then you have to ship less boxes, less pallets, less trucks going back and forth. If you're reducing the number of that, then you're going to be saving a lot of carbon dioxide. Obviously, there's going to be, think about that truck going back and forth. If you have to do less journeys with that truck, that's going to be less CO2. And if you're doing that journey hundreds of times a year, that's really going to build up quickly. And when you've got an organization really trying to monitor their carbon dioxide kind of output, small things like that can really, really help.
Yeah, especially because the market is really expanding. When we are seeing all these home delivery companies, and all these e-commerce platforms, which are increasing the number of labels that we are using every day. This little help becomes very, very important, becomes very, very critical. But even more than a feeling, a sensation, it's also a directive from the European Union, right? And I can imagine it's not only the European Union, it's also the UK, it's also any other country are really looking at to that. So how strong is the European directive, and how strong is that impacting in this technology, Alex?
So very interesting you bring that up. So back in 1994, we introduced the European Union Directive for packaging and packaging waste. And very simply, that looked at basically different materials, of basically suppliers, what is classed as packaging, what is classed as packaging waste.
Yeah.
And in recent years, the liner material, so the little liner yellow material you can see here, that's been reclassified as packaging waste. So when you've got your sustainability officers, your environmental officers in your organization who are going to be measured on how much waste that there is in their organization, this is all going to be contributing now. So companies are going to have no choice but to move away to more environmentally friendly solutions with less packaging waste. So I think it's showing that there's definitely going to be a movement away from the traditional kind of media that you have and looking at other alternatives with less packaging waste. It's not a case of wanting to or thinking it's a good idea. You've got a mandate telling you you've got to reduce that now.
Which automatically brings us to the opportunity in the market, because most of our resellers need to talk to their customers about this. And this means that some of the printers will need to be changed, some of the printers will need to be adapted. And I think that's one of the best market opportunities that we can bring in this moment to our partners, right?
Absolutely. And it's been really, really excited to talk about linerless labels. I think it is a question that keeps coming up more and more now. Yeah. I think even myself, I've been only working at Zebra for 3 years. My first year or so, no one even mentioned linerless. It was kind of this little niche thing that, maybe one day it will be big, one day maybe it'll be the go-to. Whereas I'm really starting to think now that it is that time. It's starting to come along.
Even if people is not even making the step, what they should, but even if they are not making the step, hey, Filipe, that our teams, are always discussing with customers what can they bring to their end users, right? And they need good reasons to open doors. This is a real door opener, because when you are coming with a directive and say, guys, are you aware that you are not compliant to the European Union directive, then of course people is going to be listening. That can bring us also to another market opportunities.
Yes, and actually when Alex said that it was 3 years in this industry, I've been in the longer time, and it's also something.
How long, Filipe?
A little bit long, 20 something.
Okay.
It was also kind of surprising, this kind of technology that brings bringing to the market. Also, I can see this butterfly effect, which a small change in the label can have such a big impact in all the way since production, etc. So this is really something that our customers, our resellers and partners should look for.
They should value that, absolutely, especially because even if they take the technology, even if they not incorporate the technology, still this is something that they can talk to the customers about, and for sure this can open opportunities for their other staff. But Alex, there is something that catch my attention before, when we were preparing the podcast, and then you talk about how this can help to reduce the risk of having accidents, right? But honestly, how dangerous is a label? I mean, come on. You must be kidding, right?
No, it sounds hilarious, but it is true. And to be honest, what I quite like is the fact that the liner I've got in front of me here is yellow. So almost think of it of a bit of a banana skin.
Yeah. So it's slippery.
Yeah, it is slippery. It's the silicon material that makes it quite slippery. If you've got workers going back and forth, so say you've got printers printing hundreds or thousands of labels a day, that's going to be a lot of liner. You're going to be having to dispose of it in your bins, but these bins are eventually going to have to be disposed of, and there's just going to be a lot of people going back and forth with this slippery material. All it takes is one bit of liner to fall out, and then you could potentially cause an accident. So not only from the kind of productivity side of things or the environmental side of things, but the health and safety as well. And it's just one really small thing, again, almost a bit like the butterfly effect you said there, but all these little reasons, they do all add up. And yeah, even as hilarious as it sounds, it's true. And I think there's been documented instances of it.
No, honestly, as I said before, I mean, it's quite exciting to talk about this kind of technology, because from a simple label, you can really come to a real market opportunity, So, okay, we've been seeing, what is the scenario, what is the current, picture of the printing technology, especially in the labels, But what is the answer to that challenge? What do you have? What can we offer to the market?
So, Paco, the thing I'm going to be introducing to the market is linerless labels. it is not
Surprise.
I know, it's as if we've been hinting it the whole time. It's not a new technology by any means. It's probably been around far longer than I've even been born.
Yeah.
So,
which was yesterday, right? So,
I'm not that young.
Well, maybe before yesterday.
But I think back in the day, there are several reasons why it's not picked up. Maybe when it first came out, and maybe it was the cost, maybe it was the lack of environmental focus, or maybe it just wasn't an understanding of it even existing. So very simply, Linerless label is almost a bit like a sticky roll. Almost think of like masking tape or sellotape or something of that nature. You've kind of got the slippery silicone material, so very similar to the liner.
Yeah.
And on the back, you've just got a very special adhesive, so you can just peel it away just like that.
correct.
And all you do is you take off the roll there and you put it onto the box. No waste. And that can just help so much with all the different use cases here.
Alex, I mean, how difficult was to come to this solution? Because at the end, it's just a simpler version of the current label roll, right? So the printers probably have been changing also significantly to be able to use this kind of rolls.
Absolutely. I think there's probably costs are probably the main reasons why. I think it costs slightly more to produce.
Yeah.
And then you've got to have a special printer capable of doing this.
Yeah.
You've got to have special like rollers on the inside of the printer where this won't get stuck to it. Because obviously, if this is going through the printer, your standard media, you've got no sticky surface on this side, so there's nothing for it to get caught on. If you used a linerless roll, it's got that special adhesive on the other side, so there's a very high chance that if you had a standard printer, it would get caught up on the inside, bunged up, and it would break the printer. So you have to have a very specially designed printer to use this, and it's basically been a kind of surge in the market of developing printers capable of using these, and more printers are now supporting this.
Yeah, but more and more printers are supporting that, and of course the wide, there is probably a wide of range of uses, that these rolls are able to cover. But I mean, can you cover the same kind of markets with this kind of technology that with the standard labels?
I think that's the beauty of it. A label is a label at the end of the day. I'm sure my supplies colleagues will hate me saying that, but a label has to have a certain amount of information on, and if it goes on that box, if it sticks in that box, then it's done the job.
Okay.
So I don't think end users are that bothered of how the label looks necessarily, as long as you can read the information on it and you can track the package from A to B. I think it's done the job, and I think you shouldn't think of different use cases as such. Think of the same existing opportunities you've got today, but just repositioning it with linerless instead.
Okay, fantastic. So let's talk about the benefits of linerless. I mean, which one would you consider the biggest benefit of using linerless?
I think it really depends who you're talking to. I think you can kind of pin it down to three main areas. You're probably looking at reduced waste, kind of workforce productivity benefits, and environmental. Let's start on waste, for example, as that's the kind of big obvious one. If you're not having to bin 50% of the roll, that is going to save you time and money. If you've got the worker printing off, they've got to go to the bin, put it in the bin, then someone else is going to take the bin and take it to landfill. Those journeys back and forth with landfill are just going to take up time, manpower. Whereas if you've got no rubbish, that time spent disposing the rubbish can be put into something else, such as the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alex, still continue to talk about benefits of the linerless labels. What about workforce and environmental? What kind of benefits this kind of new labels are bringing?
So obviously we've talked about all the kind of waste, the environmental factors. I think workforce productivity is probably another one of the key benefits in my eyes. Let's start with the slip hazards. If you've got someone who slips over at work, that's going to be a lot of wasted time if they have to even go off to A&E, for example. If you can prevent those trip hazards, you're going to have your workforces in a safer working environment, and they're going to be able to focus on their job that they're there to do. Also in productivity, that you've got 50% more rolls on a linerless roll of media. If you've got more labels that you can fit on there, it means you don't have to change it as much. And obviously every single time you take out the old supplies, put in a new one, that just adds on time. The printer might be printing loads and loads of labels. Every second that you're not printing labels could be money lost for your organization. And reduction in timing. We're talking about calibration.
Calibration, yes.
Yeah, not calibration.
Big issue.
Yeah, super calibration fan, right?
The supermarket trend of calibration.
Mr.
Yeah.
Calibration.
But that all takes time. The calibration itself will take time, and people training you to do the calibration. As you don't have a start and an end on a linerless roll, it's just one big long continuous bit of media. You don't have to calibrate it, and therefore you're saving the time there. So
I think that's a key element, and Alex,
I'm
because,
convinced.
people,
I'm convinced with the linerless. I mean, no problems with
You're convinced
calibration.
now,
It's great.
So Mr. Calibration is convinced on calibration. That's absolutely great. No, but I think seriously, I think reducing the time of training is something that is very critical, because most of the times, the partners, the resellers, but especially the end users, they don't realize the time they put, in training people, or the time they waste, because they don't know, how long it has been taking to their employees to get used to any new technology, right? Yeah. So reducing the time of training, I think, is a key element, is a key value that this technology is bringing to the market.
I guess another way of looking at it is think about organizations that have really high turnover of staff, especially over the festive Christmas period, for example. You've got people doing temporary work. You want to be able to train them to the top level that they can be as quickly as possible. And I think those kind of quick turnover stuff, it's going to be happening quite a lot out there. So just make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, environmental is also one of those areas that, probably people is not realizing how much this technology can do for them, right? Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, actually. So obviously we're talking about the packaging waste, how traditional linered media, this is classed as packaging waste, and therefore environmental officers are going to be measured against how much they can reduce or have no packaging waste. Linerless media, you do not have waste. Once you peel the label away from the roll, that's that. You don't have to dispose of anything. You can put it straight onto the box, and therefore it's going to be in line with kind of directives to the packaging waste. It supports companies' sustainability and environmental narratives. Another statistic for you here is 20% of the top 2,000 largest organizations globally have a net zero commitment. If they can get rid of their packaging waste, that can make it so much easier to hit those goals.
20%. 1 out of 5. That's crazy.
And think about it, the market share that these big players in the market are going to be having, it's obviously going to be more than 20% of the market. So you're probably looking at a way bigger number than that.
Absolutely. Also because I think, again, coming back to the opportunity point of view, this is a real opportunity for the partners to talk to those at least 20% of the market, players that are not, let's say, in that area still. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. So, hey, Alex, give me some facts. This is what one of my colleagues would call the Paco's facts, okay? But I need some facts on this.
I heard about this, so I did.
Yeah,
I did
exactly.
lots of.
You're prepared, right?
I did lots of digging, lots of research. I was up all last night trying to come up with a good fact for you.
So give us some facts, please.
So, all right, let's take a very big household organisation that is printing, say, millions of labels a day. Let's say 10 million. And they're going to be printing your traditional 4x6 shipping label. So when you have an Amazon package, for example, you have a 4x6 label on there, your standard label on there. Those 10 million labels would produce 9.6 tons of liner. So 9.6 tons of this for every 10 million labels they produce. They're going to be producing that. That's just one organization producing 9.6 tons. That's going to be about 9.3 tons of carbon dioxide, which is huge. Obviously, companies are going to be monitoring their carbon dioxide output, and just numbers like that are just going to make it even harder for them to reach their goals unless they're thinking about the environment and other solutions. So my fun fact for you is you'd have to plant 736 trees to offset the liner that you'd create for those 10 million labels. So you'd have to plant a whole forest for every 10 million labels.
That's really huge.
So let me repeat again, how
about,
exciting
really.
Can be talking about labels. I mean, these are real facts,
Whoa.
and these facts are really proving that this technology should mean something for the market in the future. Absolutely. Because we've been talking about this technology for years, but I think more and more this is becoming a critical issue, right? And I think people is more conscious now about changing into these kind of steps, especially when we hear that kind of facts. Right?
Yeah, I think my call to action would be change the people you're talking to in the organization.
Yeah.
Rather than just your IT guys sorting out how the printers work, talk to their sustainability officers about how you can support them in the environmental side of things. Tell them all the trees, all the carbon dioxide output they're going to be reducing by using something like Linerless Media, and quote that statistic if you want.
Honestly, being compliant also means that probably you can also have access to certain governmental help, right, and some tax reduction, etc. So at the end, there is a kind of equation between cost and efficiency, but there is also an equation between cost and what kind of benefit you can get from different organizations, right? Because we've been talking about cost, and then of course, Filipe, you're Portuguese, I'm Spanish, you're from the UK, but we know that there are different sensitivities around Europe, when we talk about eco, right? So I think we in the south are as eco-friendly as anyone in the north. The only question is people in the south, and when I say people, I mean not only us but also our customers. In the south they are less willing to spend more money if they don't see an immediate benefit, right? While in the north they are absolutely educated and prepared to spend more money because the benefit is for them much more clear. So being eco-friendly, eco-sensitive, yes, we are all the same, but being ready to pay more, so there is also certain equation between using the technology, spending some more money at the beginning, but of course getting a big return of investment, in the long term, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that echoes kind of Zebra's overall strategy, whether you're looking at print or maybe something like mobile computing, whether the benefit of having a rugged mobile device opposed to a kind of consumer iPhone, for example, and your return on investment. Spend that a little bit extra at the beginning and you'll reap the benefits over and over. And I'd say different geographies in Europe, some people you're going to have to start about talking about the cost, how we will get a return on investment long term. Whereas other customers just talk about the green directives, talk about the EU packaging waste directive, for example. They've got no choice but to move. And then you can also talk about the money benefits, the productivity benefits with the calibration, and just target from different perspectives. The UK market, for example, I know we're very, very green focused right now. Start with the green and then talk about the productivity and the costs. Whereas maybe someone in a southern market start with the kind of cost and then bring in other elements as well.
You said something very, very critical, and maybe it's the time to start talking to different players, right? Not only to the IT, not only to this or to that purchaser. Maybe we should talk about, green being green, and of course that's a kind of speech that should be addressed to a different kind of player in the same companies that we are talking to, but in different departments.
Absolutely, go deeper and wider to get to know your whole organization, not just the same people you always talk to, because they're going to have that metric that's being measured on, and they can probably be behind the scenes really influential on a deal, and they'll be like, no, I think we should spend the extra money on Linerless printing because of the long-term investment and the kind of environmental benefits.
How about the benefits on the different vertical markets? I mean, you've been talking of, we just pointed some differences, some cultural differences between the north and the south, but I wonder if there are also some specific targets that different markets are focusing on compared to other verticals, right? I don't know, maybe warehousing is the best place to start talking about this, or is the pharmacy, or is a hospital, or is a mobility, ticketing kind of company.
Well, I think the beauty of Linerless printing is you do not need to actually think about different markets, because it is the same markets that you're talking to today. Talking to the same customers in the same verticals, whether it's transport and logistics, in the warehouse, in the kind of healthcare, in the pharmaceutical world, all of these will accept Linerless roles. You're not going to have to go to some very niche players in a different part of the market. So I'd say talk to the same people you are today, and we've got a Zebra product basically for all these different verticals, and I'm sure I can talk you through some of the use cases that different products would be useful for example.
Well, obviously we don't go too much deep into products, in this podcast, but I think it's wise because you're here also to tell us what is the Zebra proposal, right? How are you answering this market opportunity, this market challenge?
Yeah, so in our Zebra portfolio today, we've got desktop printers, we've got mobile printers, and then we obviously do the supplies ourselves. This is a Zebra-made Linerless roll. So your desktop printers, that's going to be your kind of, your high volume applications in the kind of Linerless world. Let's talk about postal, for example. You've got your big household postal names. Those postal drivers, they're going to be putting lots and lots of labels on different boxes. They're going to be creating a lot of waste. If they don't have to create that waste anymore, they're going to be a lot more productive. And I know some of the postal customers, we've been talking to them, and they've been saying we've got a sustainability goal that we need to hit by 2024, 2025. We won't be able to meet it with traditional standard supplies. We need to look at alternatives. So that's just an example of how a desktop printer could be positioned here.
Correct.
Pharmaceutical bag labeling. You wouldn't even think of pharmaceutical and Linerless in the same world, but pharmacy bags, they all need to be labeled. there's no reason why you couldn't use a linerless roll instead of the depth.
Well, and honestly, I think in the pharmaceutical business, talking about something which is more eco-friendly and also using less chemicals, less paper waste, I think probably is very sensitive to that.
Much
Right,
more
so,
than in other industries, for instance.
compared to the warehouse and manufacturing, for
Exactly.
sure. Of course, they are sensitive, but I think they are a cleaner environment,
Exactly.
and of course, they should be more careful with that. Correct.
Oh, completely. Yeah. You could obviously be cleaning these supplies to the same standards. They're all tested to the same standards. Zebra rigorously test all our kind of supplies of media out there. And we've got our own supplies portfolio for that, exactly. It's specially designed, direct thermal printing, approved for Zebra printers, using a special adhesive. You have to have a special cutter in printers that use linerless. Our supplies are tested to work with Zebra cutters. It's just all kind of part of the ecosystem that works in the kind of Zebra world.
Absolutely. We've been also discussing this for ages. We all know that using also original media is much more beneficial, for the printers, itself, and the life of a printer can last much longer, if they are using the original.
The life cycle of the
labels.
printheads, basically.
Exactly, and it all comes back to saving money again. If people maybe cut corners with supplies at the beginning of the conversation, but whereas if you go for some higher quality supplies that are kind of created for the dedicated printer, so Zebra supplies for a Zebra printer, then it's just going to last a lot longer. Your printer doesn't need replacing as much, and you just save money longer term and a happier, more productive workplace.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. You were talking about desktop. What about mobile printers, as you said in the beginning? So, what is the kind of offer that Zebra has in this kind of?
And here is where you see the mobile side of
Yeah.
Mr.
He
of
had
Mr. Neves,
he had
right?
mobile, and
Mobile
He was
No.
just looking for the moment to talk about mobility,
Yeah.
right? So
I've been
waiting
silenced
for
now.
time,
Yeah, mobile and calibration. Yeah. So, what about
Let's
mobile?
talk about mobile point of sale. So you're doing that kind of point of sale there and then, and you're kind of wanting to print off a sticker to maybe put as a kind of receipt of the payment that's just been completed. If you've got your traditional supplies, you're going to take off the label and then you're left with the liner. What's that person going to do with that rubbish then? They're going to have to go and find a bin for it. If they've got lots of payments to make, they're going to have to go and find lots of places to put all this rubbish, and it's just going to waste that person's time because they're going to have to be going back and forth from the bin. If it's a linerless roll, once they've kind of given off their proof of receipt to the person that they're giving it to, done. They can move on to the next customer.
That's great.
And it's
Efficiency.
just that productivity, mobility, it just allows them to do their job better rather than being a kind of waste disposal person on the side of doing their point of sales.
Fantastic.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the future of the linerless printing. I mean, where do you see Zebra going? But most important, where do you see the market going into the linerless
So
technology?
I guess if we're talking about the linerless market, there's been some research into the kind of market and how it's kind of growing over time. And annually, it's estimated to grow by 4.6% every year between 2017 and 2023. So already obviously a couple of years into that now, and we've been seeing that firsthand in the market. And I wouldn't be surprised if after 2023, that growth continues and continues and continues to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. I think environmental issues are only going to become a bigger priority for organisations. The EU directive will expand for further countries that maybe don't even have environmental directives at the moment.
Correct.
And that's just going to all contribute to the market kind of just continuing to grow.
All right, and in terms of Zebra as a manufacturer of printers, etc., and these labels, what can we expect in the future from Zebra?
So today, as you said, we've got desktop, mobile, and we've got our own supplies portfolio.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had a tabletop linerless printer introduced to our portfolio. I think the desktop printers are capable of printing a couple of hundred labels a day, whereas tabletop printers are capable of printing thousands of labels a day. Our premium printers can print infinite amounts of labels, and customers are going, hang on, I'd like to print even more kind of linerless rolls. Maybe your big transport and logistic customers, the household names, they're going to be printing millions of labels a day. They're wanting printers that are capable of printing millions over like a certain period. Desktop printers wouldn't be suitable for that. So I think it's been an absolute no-brainer that Zebra do look into tabletop printing linerless, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did introduce that to our portfolio going forward. And I think the same extends to our print engine portfolio as well.
Right.
This is obviously a print and apply world who work closely with customers in the kind of transport and logistics world. Some of our partners today have solutions where they've turned a Zebra print engine into a linerless solution, but obviously it's kind of very niche at the moment, and we don't make it easier as possible for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years' time we have a linerless print engine as well, as there's purely market demand for it. There's people saying we would like this. You've got it on your other printers. How can you expand it elsewhere as well to different use cases and applications?
This is what we like to hear. Like it's still a small part of the printing business, but certainly is one of the biggest or fastest growing areas in the printing. So I think again, this represents a very good opportunity for our partners. And this is what we are trying to expand.
Yeah, and we see a lot of benefits, not only in terms of productivity and etc., but also going green, eco-friendly, which is something, as you said, more and more important in our times.
Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, coming to the point is like we made the question a few times. How exciting can be talking about labels? Well, I hope after this podcast you have the answer by yourselves. It was excellent. It was very interesting, and I think we have learned a lot today.
Definitely,
Filipe. So
sure.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. I hope that we will see you in more podcasts. And Filipe, great to have you here for the first time, and thank you for your help today. So we'll be back with more information very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.